Hey guys, welcome back to the Bucket Think Tank, and today we're going to talk about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles The Last Ronin, written by Kevin Easterman and Peter Laird. So this was a story that apparently had been going on for a long time. Like, it had been like a rough draft or an outline written back as early as like the 80s. And this story basically is sort of an homage to Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns, which I think is appropriate because these are both stories about crotchety old people that kind of refuse to die. And all that's left for them is the work. And so the premise here was, in the future, there was only one turtle left. Who that turtle is, they won't tell you until the end of the first issue, which I felt was one of two issues, maybe three issues I had with the story in its entirety. But overall, this is a really good story. If you needed a reason to get back into Ninja Turtles, this is it, because apparently this 5-issue story is not the end of it. But, yeah. So, what I liked about this story was not only the idea of it being an homage to Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns, which is a story that, being the massive Batman fanboy I am, I've read it more than once. I also watched the animated movie, which was actually pretty good. I like the idea of the Last Ronin. Like, there were once 4 brothers, now there's just one, and now all that's left for him is revenge, is, finishing the work that they started. And it's interesting to note that this story, it's interesting to note how different the comics are from the TV show. Now, at least pretty much every TV show, because, and even the movies, honestly, because the comics have always built this much larger story that every now and then the TV shows sort of dive into, like, Fugitoid, the Purple Dragons, the Utroms. Yeah, those are dug into, and they've been dug into, like, for years, even in the original cartoon. But sort of like the long-standing continuity of this, especially the continuity that The Last Ronin is supposed to take place in, and this story, which is the newer comics under Mirage, if I'm not mistaken, and sort of explaining the sort of blood feud between the Hamato and Oroku clans. And honestly, I like that. To me, Ninja Turtles works best as a sort of street-level thing, and you can go a bit further with the mysticism, but when we go to places like space, and, we're fighting giant Triceratop aliens, I'm like, you know what, no. We've got a bit ridiculous. Mutant Ninja Turtles was one thing, but giant Triceratops and robots from other planets, no. I like my street-level turtles dealing with a ninja organization. But overall, this was still a good event. The only thing that really killed this event overall for me, and I think it killed it for a lot of people, maybe a lot, but overall, it's the one thing that really hurt it, which is the delays. So this story was supposed to be the big event of 2020. If you remember, 2020 was right around the time that everything went to hell. So yeah, there were a lot of delays for this book, and delays will kill or at least hurt the momentum of the book. Because the longer the delays, the further back it's into the mind of the readers. There'll be other stuff they're reading. Same thing happened in Doomsday Clock. It's even worse for stories like Doomsday Clock because it's part of a bigger thing going on that those companies doing. Like DC and Marvel's events really have to be on time because they've got other events planned out that really can't be, like, as Gandalf said, things are in motion that cannot be undone once it starts. And while nothing else was really going on for Ninja Turtles outside of the main book, which had nothing to do with Last Ronin, it was a bit distracting. Like, sometimes I just forgot that I was still reading Last Ronin, because books, it just kept getting pushed back and back and back. Again, 2020. This should have been done last year, like late last year. But no, this would have been the book of 2021. But here we are, and actually, no, it would have been the book of. Yeah, the book of 2021, because it started, I believe, late 2020. But whatever. So anyway, we're going to talk about the first issue and go from there. So our first issue is, I think, a really fun first issue. So we're getting there. Namely because of how it's set up. So we see this post-apocalyptic future. Well, not even post-apocalyptic, post-global warming, which, depending on how that happens, could spell the death of us all. But we see the Ronin here. I like the jump part of his design. I like the fact that for this story, we see a bunch of different turtles talking, a bunch of different voices talking, which we can only presume are the voices of other turtles. And so that should help us determine who's who. But in reality, it doesn't, because we should be hearing 3 voices. Instead, at times, it seems like we hear 4 voices. So it's a great way to keep us on our toes as to exactly who the Last Ronin is. And I want to talk about this design for a bit. I like the fact that he has not just the weapons of his brothers, whichever turtle he is, because we see the sai, we see the nunchuck, we see the bow staff and the katana. So we also see the tonfa. So all bets are off as to who this turtle is. I like that he looks older. The costume is, I think, great. I love the black mask as opposed to any other color, because we get it. In part, you could say he's mourning the loss of his brothers, or also just, it's black, more intense, more on edge. Yeah, it's a great feeling. And when that mission fails, we actually see this scene get pretty dark, with him placing the weapons down, realizing his failure, and even taking the mask out, which I felt was a really great touch, and him getting ready to basically kill himself. But luckily, because he failed so epically, he passes out, and he has this really cool, not sure if it's a flashback or a dream. It could be either one, depending on what you think. I think is a dream. But even when we go back into the future, they never clarify which turtle this is. None of the dialogue specifies which turtle it is. It's just Turtle's woken up, he's greeted by his brothers, and boop boop badoop. I like it. Great work. Great work. It would be even greater work if we didn't have April show up. Love April this year, and tell us that this is Michelangelo. And everyone kind of guessed it was Michelangelo. Alright? So I think that was another reason why they decided to reveal it in the first issue. There's only 4 choices, and as you go through, you've probably already figured out, process of elimination, who it was. Like, you get a guess if it wasn't Donatello, if he doesn't really know anything special about machines. You'd guess if it was... Actually, since it's on Edge, you probably could never guess if it was Raph or not. So, I would have still liked to drag it out. Sort of played up the idea that, either it doesn't matter which turtle he is, or we don't find out until the last issue, because the trauma of whatever he went through was so great, he doesn't know who he is without his brothers. But it was Michelangelo. They revealed that, it was revealed in an interview that, we thought about it, and, there were 3 reasons given. One that I really, really can't argue with. The rest I'm just going to nitpick because I'm me. One was, we felt Leonardo and Raph were 2 obvious choices. Donatello would have been a more sciencey. We wanted someone boots on the ground. I'm like, okay. And they all had April to be tech. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But the biggest one was Michelangelo, and I didn't know this. Michelangelo was the first Ninja Turtle drawn, so it made sense for him to be the last turtle. I'm like, I can't argue with that. I'll argue with all the other ones, because at this point, the happy-go-lucky one being dark and gritty is kind of obvious. Why not? Donnie was my choice. I thought Donnie would have been a great choice, but I sort of agree, if you want to tell the story realistically, he would dive into the tech, and he might become even more detached. So, yeah, there's that. But, overall, I like the last reason better than the other ones, but, their story, not mine. I still bought all 5 issues. So, whatever. It doesn't break the story. It's just a personal taste. And again, most people guessed it already. Primarily because, again, this has been done to death. Not their fault. So, what this story really does do well is sort of tell us exactly what happened. It builds up to a nice slow... not a bit of a slow start as exactly what happened, and the slow destruction of both the Hamato and Oroku families as the truce between the 2 of them is broken. And for the longest time, I was like, okay, we're going to find out how the truce was broken, and I was thinking too hard. Effectively, I was hoping, and I was bringing my experience from other Ninja Turtles franchises, that, Karai wanted peace, like she wouldn't want this fight, so who broke the truce? It turns out, Karai broke it. Karai broke it, and and for a while I felt like, that's a bit of a cop. I'm like, no, it's not. No, it's not. This was pretty much set in the Mirage Comics line, not the entirety of everything. Stuff is familiar if you do it, definitely rewards people who've been in the Ninja Turtles thick of it for a while. But the real meat of this is not just, I know that. It's the fact that you just watch these turtles. Watch not just the turtles, but both sides sort of suffer these losses, and Mikey being at the center of it. I thought the real twist would be that Mikey was the one that accidentally broke the truce. I'm like, okay, cool. But there's also a fun character here, Casey Marie Jones, the daughter of April and Casey. And April has an interesting story here too. It's not groundbreaking, but how she has moved on and sort of kept going. You know, April never quit fighting the fight against this sort of police state that Hiroto Oroku has created, but there's not much she can do the same way. And so we have Casey Marie Jones here as sort of the Carrie Kelly to Michelangelo's Bruce Wayne out of Dark Knight Returns. And what separates Carrie from Casey from Carrie, I don't know, for some reason I couldn't get it, is most of the fact that Casey doesn't quite know what she's doing. She thinks, Valor will win the day, and she's like, no. It's Mikey sort of has to begrudgingly be her teacher. Well, I think with Carrie Kelly, she was sort of so gung ho, and sort of implied that she was more than capable of doing this. Mikey's sort of like, if I don't teach her this right, she's going to get herself killed. And that's a function in itself, sort of giving Mikey a reason to keep going, because ever since what's happened, he's sort of been on a downward spiral. It's not like he hasn't found some degree of peace, which he really hasn't, but what he has found is focus and drive. And he's completed his training to the highest level. He's mastered every weapon, and while being haunted by the ghost of his brothers, which I think is a really cool idea, to see his brothers in these sort of dark colors, sort of like they offset the rest of the world, letting you know they don't belong there. With also the mystery of, are they actual ghosts or his trauma, his PTSD, his survival's guilt? Is all that playing up? We don't quite know yet, which is really cool. But either way, they're going to finish the last mission. The mission that they were supposed to do, the mission that Splinter trained them for, killing the last Oroku, which will be Hiroto. And Hiroto is actually like the worst character here. He's designed to be totally unforgiving. Even when he talks about how he hates his mom, as he spends most of the time loving his mom, he's like a worse version of Credence from Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. And we will be talking about that, because I just watched that movie last night, and oh my god, that's terrible. But anyway, the fight with the relationship between Hiroto and Mikey is kind of irrelevant. They don't know each other personally. Hiroto just knows the turtles are terrible, and he is responsible for the death of some of them. Yeah, the death of pretty much two of them. And all Mikey knows is that clan has to go, because they have killed his family. And this is a blood feud. We're going to Hatfield and McCoy this, but it's going to end now, damn it. It's going to end now. And he's got issues with his mom. I think what's interesting about Hiroto is he seems to hate his mom and the turtles because they spent more time fighting each other than they did raising him. His mom I have to kill the turtles. But Mom, it's my birthday. Killing turtles. It's sort of it. And he's kind of designed to be irredeemable. Even Mikey points out that both Karai and Karai and Shredder had a sense of honor about them that Hiroto doesn't have, and I think that might be why he's allowed to be successful. He's thrown honor out the window. What is honor? It's just a word. It's something that just slows you down. And the fight is sort of... the fight's not bad. It just sort of... I think had this come out more consistently, I'd have been more invested. But the final pages of this book are really great. There's a lot of heart to it. There's this sort of... Easterman and Laird was sort of really going with the idea that this is a suicide mission. There was no way Mikey was going to make it out of this alive, and he would either succeed or he would die, or he would kill himself. If it failed so badly that he couldn't continue again, he'd kill himself. We saw it at the beginning. He would either die in a blaze of glory, or he would kill Hiroto Oroku, and that's kind of it. Or is it? I got these twice, I'm sorry. So the last page of this book is letting you know it's not really over. It's actually kind of messed up in my mind that you just found 4 turtles. You know what? I'm going to turn these into mutants and raise them on pizza and ninjutsu and go from there. Honestly, The Last Ronin is a story that I think was sort of let down, not by anything the story had done. Not by any failing on the writer's part. I think they told a great story. It's just the delays, and really the delays sort of hurt the momentum of this book. My only other issue is certain things don't seem to quite pay off. Like the Fugitoid thing paid off. That was great. Stockman's here. Stockman refuses to go away. That was great. There was talk about how Mikey's mutation has been growing. Like, it's been going further along. That doesn't really come into play outside of the fact, well, this is why you're still alive. There's that. I'd have liked to see more of sort of like the goings on of what led to the truce being broken. Like, what decision did Karai hit that said, like, you know what? Screw the truce. We're going down. Kill them all. Overall, though, I think The Last Ronin is a great story. This will definitely be one of the books of 2022, because it's supposed to be the book of 2021. But yeah, so anyway, if you are new to the Bucket Think Tank, free to like, comment, share, subscribe, smash the thumbs up button. I'll catch you all later. This is Bucket Think Tank signing off. Thanks for watching. As always, may your fandom serve you well.